Hi, I'm Jeff Haecker, and you're listening to The Secrets of Stargate, where we talk about the hidden meanings and deeper layers found in the Stargate movies, TV series, and more. And joining me today are Lisa Jones. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Jeff.
And Victor Lambs. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Jeff.
All right, so today we are discussing the 18th episode of Season 9 of SG-1, Arthur's Mantle. In this episode, Carter has been trying to access the device found in Merlin's cave. She triggers an energy surge which transports her and Mitchell to a parallel dimension, and they cannot figure out how to get back. They discover that the device shows a projection in Ancient in this dimension. They eventually are able to signal Daniel and Dr. Lee, who begin a long process of back and forth to translate the projection. While Dr. Lee is trying to bring Carter back, he triggers another surge which sends Daniel to the dimension. However, the translation will go much faster with him there, and he discovers the ancient Merlin had created a weapon that could kill ascended beings, as well as the coordinates where it could be found. Meanwhile, the SGC has heard the Sodan homeworld was attacked by priors. Teal'c and SG-12 go to investigate, and eventually Mitchell goes to the Stargate to join them. The Sodan have all been killed by a zombie Volnek, and only Haecker has survived. They give him Tritonin to try to save him, while Teal'c uses a Sodan cloak to go on the hunt. They also learn that Volnek has taken a transport control crystal so they cannot be transported back to the gate. Mitchell learns that Teal'c can see him in the cloak, and they plan to draw Volnek into an ambush to be blown up by mines. At a very inconvenient moment, Sam, Daniel, and Mitchell are pulled back into their dimension, and Volnek attacks the now corporeal Mitchell. Teal'c intervenes, and they successfully bait Volnek into the trap, stopping this zombie Sodan warrior. And RIP to the Sodan. All right, so what did you think about this episode, Lisa?
I thought this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this episode. I don't know. I felt like it was an episode from many seasons ago, not, season 9. I feel like Cameron Mitchell is finally kind of part of the team, and he and Carter, I feel like they've really created this repertoire, just the way that they buddy and get along with each other. And then, he's like, he's getting indoctrinated into all of the SG-1 things. And, Teal'c still had something to do, but yet Cameron had to go with him. And then you brought Daniel in, and then, Landry's over there getting mad at Dr. Lee. And you've got all this other technical stuff going on. Like, is it a dimension? Is it an alter reality? But none of that really matters. I'm sure we're going to argue about why don't they fall through the floor, right? But none of that really matters. It was a lot of fun, and it really tees up what's going to happen in the last couple episodes of the season. So, we're advancing the plot at the same time that we're just having a good old fashioned, oops, did I touch that? Kind of an episode. So I liked it.
Very nice. And what about you, Victor?
Yeah, I liked it too. It's a fun Stargate episode. Everyone on the team has something to do, which is nice, including Dr. Lee. Although I think they make him a little bit more buffoonish than they really needed to, but that's Dr. Lee. Yeah, I liked it. I was sad to see the Sodan get wiped out, mostly off screen. I think that was kind of an inglorious end to a once proud race of Jaffa, but so be it, I guess. This episode had kind of an interesting production history too, which we'll get into a little bit. But overall, I think I liked it.
Yeah, I would agree. This one was a lot of fun. You got some of the, like you said, the goofy, sciencey, partial mumbo jumbo stuff. And yeah, there was the whole thing of not falling through the floor. How can you go through the Stargate and all that? But you had good action too. And yeah, this is, I talked about it before when we saw the Sodan, but I wish we had spent more time with them. I wish we had learned of the Sodan a couple seasons ago, and then they could have been involved in a lot more instead of just kind of being wiped out for the most part. I mean, I guess we don't know for sure if Haecker survives, but if he does, then he's the last of his people there. So yeah, overall I enjoyed it, and yeah, like you said, Lisa, it really sets up the rest of the series, because this next this weapon thing will play out throughout season 10. So yeah, it really kind of sets it all up there. So. But so we start out with, of course, there's a sciencey thing that Carter's trying to do, and she's been working on it all night. And just when she's about to take a break, something happens. So, and she and Mitchell get pulled into that. I think they called it a parallel dimension, which they made a distinction between that and a alternate reality. So,
Yeah.
what did y'all think of that whole thing?
Yeah, I liked it originally in the original version of the script. So this was, slotted in as episode 18 of season 9. And so they knew they needed to, at the end of this episode, have a lead on Merlin's device or Merlin's weapon. In the original version of the script, the device actually sucked Mitchell and Sam into the device itself, and they're in kind of like this virtual world. But that was like way too expensive. So they rewrote it so that they could use their existing sets and just have them in, this alternate dimension where they're running around. And they did acknowledge, the whole "why don't you fall through the floor" thing. So I don't know if they shot this scene or not, but at one point, Mitchell turns to Sam and say, "Wait a minute, like, why am I not falling through the floor?" And then they cut back to Mitchell and he's half in the floor. And Sam says, "Best not to think about it," and pulls him out. I don't know if they filmed that one or not, but there were some other scenes where Mitchell like gets stuck in a desk or, that sort of thing that they actually did film but didn't use in the episode because I don't know if they were deemed too silly or not. But they did have a lot more fun with it than what made it into the episode.
I like that they didn't. I mean, it's like they acknowledged it.
Yeah.
Kind of like we had it. What was it? Wormhole Extreme, that episode.
Yeah.
They acknowledged it and then they just like hand waved it away. You're like, no, we don't need to worry about it. Let's just move forward. And I liked that. And then I love that they are, their solution is like, oh, alternate dimension. Daniel's been in an alternate dimension before. Let's go see if he can see us, which I thought was hysterical because the only other time we've seen an alternate dimension, they're right. That was Daniel. And that was, I don't know, like season 2 or 3 or.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure. Crystal Skull. Yeah. And so I just thought that was hysterical because it's just like, okay, it feels like they're having fun again. It's like, okay, we're settled. We've got our people. Let's just enjoy ourselves. We don't know how long this is going to last. I don't know if they know they'd gotten picked up yet for season 10.
I don't know at this point. At this point, they were still talking about a Stargate SG-1 like feature movie too.
Oh, movie, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and there's a reference. Mitchell again mentions that he's read every one of the case files or mission reports.
Right.
And that's a reference to the fact that when Ben Browder was cast, I think I mentioned this before, he went and watched all 200 episodes of Stargate, SG-1, and Atlantis up until that point, just so he could get a good feel for the show. So he actually had watched every episode. And so just like Mitchell had read every report in that sense.
I love that. I like that they make his character so gung-ho for it. And then he says he just needs, what was it? He had an alternate reality. He said, this is alternate dimension. So now he just needs a good time travel episode. And then he'll have the SG-1 trifecta.
Yep.
Which I just thought that was hysterical. It's like, again, it's a way to kind of throw back to what we've all been through for the last 9 seasons. And I feel like he's kind of he represents the audience in a way. Like, okay, this is where we are. This is where we're going. Let's do it.
And I think he gets his time travel episode or his movie at least.
He does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of gets both technically, although one Mitchell doesn't remember it necessarily, but yeah, he does get a couple interactions with time travel or something similar. So, and yeah, as far as the trope of not falling through the floor, I mean that's been a trope since Star Trek. There was the one I'm thinking of is the Next Gen episode where Geordi and Rolaren and the Romulan are in the out of phase, or I think they call it out of phase in Star Trek, and they're not, they can still travel and they can still walk on the deck and they don't fall through. And there's been other Trek episodes like that too. So, but that would have been funny if they included that. And I wonder if that scene exists somewhere.
And I don't know if they actually filmed that one or not, but the working title for this episode while they were filming it was actually Out of Phase, just so they knew which episode they were talking about. It's the one where they go out of phase. And then, the writer of this episode, who is a new writer for this season, Alan McCulloch, he had, done some research in Arthurian legend and, the different artifacts that King Arthur had, and King Arthur's mantle was one of them. And so he said, okay, we're going to call the episode Arthur's Mantle. and everybody hated him and gave him a really hard time for it because they thought it was kind of a dorky name, I guess. But it works, I mean, for this episode.
Well, you've had Avalon and Camelot and all that kind of stuff. So why not?
Yep.
Yeah, but not everyone thinks they're out of phase. We have Dr. Lee thinking that they're shrunk down, which was just they could have played with that more and given like another crazy theory if they had time. But I do like that they went with that they shrunk down before they even checked the security tapes to see, or I guess they saw the flash, but they realized pretty quickly that they wouldn't be shrunk down. But that was a humorous scene with him.
Yeah.
It was pretty quick thinking. He cordoned it all off. He did the math. Like, how far could their little legs have gone? And
yeah, their tiny legs.
He thought through it. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, we could be stepping on them. Like, he was wrong, but he thought through it. It was funny.
And then we get kind of the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids thing where Rick Moranis is kind of suspended with a magnifying, visor to find him. And only he has his little lab assistant, Ronald, there trying to find them with a video camera.
Well, that was fun.
But yeah, so Mitchell and Carter they're stuck there. They're figure out they can, interact with this device, and we have to start the very slow translation of the projection that they can see once Daniel and Dr. Lee realize that they can be seen, or that they can see something on the other side. And I just, the whole time I was like, everyone needs a crash course in Ancient, so you can at least, at least learn the alphabet, and you can maybe, but, and it, made me think of the episode with Teal'c and Jack learning Ancient in the time loop, and like just learn a few things, and then but
yeah, exactly.
Of course, then.
But, and I did like how quickly Daniel caught on when Dr. Lee said lepton radiation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so as soon as he heard lepton, he realized it must be similar to his Crystal Skull episode, because the giant invisible cloud aliens there we never see again, their technology used lepton radiation with the crystal skulls.
I was surprised I remembered that. He said lepton radiation. I'm like, oh, I know this. And so we had the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids reference, and then we also had a ghost reference and Whoopi Goldberg.
Yes.
Because I guess they, with Mitchell, someone had walked through Carter, and then I think he got walked through or something. And then he's like, you can't touch anything, which I thought was hysterical, because he was channeling a little Rodney McKay, like, how am I going to eat? How am I going to drink?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Oh, there's roast beef, all the things. And so I love that then he made a reference. Funny. Yeah. He made a reference that we needed the ghost with Patrick Swayze and Whoopi Goldberg, where Patrick Swayze would like inhabit, other people, and Whoopi Goldberg could see them and stuff like that. So that was kind of funny.
Yeah, he said we need a Whoopi. Yeah.
Yeah, and then but luckily, Dr. Lee's messing around eventually leads to Daniel getting pulled in, so that Daniel can actually read the thing instead of having to go back and forth and tap on a keyboard, one letter at a time. And yeah, we get the first kind of reference that there's a weapon to defeat ascended beings, or to kill ascended beings. So, and yeah, of course, if you've seen the end, where that all goes, but yeah, it really does set up kind of the rest of the series.
Yeah, honestly, total blank on the rest of the series, but I did like the keyboard on the device, because they had it rigged up with 2 keys that could click on their own. And so that's how they're communicating. One key is yes, one key is no. And there's a lot of funny business where, they click it rapidly. Or I really like when Mitchell is telling Carter that he's going to go through the gate, and Daniel's still like scanning through the alphabet, like saying, stop when you see it. And they're completely ignoring him, as they have this big conversation. He makes it all the way through the alphabet, and, are you still there? And Carter just, like slams the key yes down.
That was awesome. And the whole Mitchell and Carter being so, this is going to take forever. I can't believe we have to do this. Okay, so I did go down a rabbit trail this week on Reddit, and there's a lot of people really upset about how that was done, because they said it wasn't the best way, and it wasn't the way it should be done, and there were better, more efficient scientific ways to translate that, and to you probably would you probably would believe how long this Reddit thread was on people actually arguing about the proper way to that should have been done. Yeah, I spent way too long reading those.
Yeah, I mean they were on a tight time though. They probably didn't have a lot of time to figure out the best way to do the translation.
Yeah,
especially
and this
since
was
they only
more
had
fun.
2 keys. Yeah, it was a lot more fun.
But we finally get some hints as to what, because we've kind of been a little bit back and forth with the Ori recently. Some episodes where they haven't even really been mentioned, and they're just kind of, we know they're out there and they're doing stuff, but we don't know what. And so this, I think, does kind of refocus it toward the finale, because we have 2 more left, I believe, in the season. So getting, you have to kind of start building up toward that, that big finale to set up. I believe it was a pretty big cliffhanger at the end of the season. So, but eventually Mitchell splits off and goes through the gate to find Teal'c, because he's gone off to the Sodan. What did y'all think of we kind of talked about it, but rest in peace to most of the Sodan warriors there. What did y'all think about that sequence?
I liked Doug Wirt as Major Haddon, who is the the leader of the Marines that goes with Teal'c initially until Colonel Reynolds shows up. I thought he was an effective character. They didn't make him too cartoonish or always wrong. He has good ways of securing. You two stay here. We'll check on the Sodan, and of course the 2 people he leaves by the transporter obelisk. One of them dies. One of them survives. But I did like him, paired up with Teal'c, and Teal'c gets his 2 P90s and goes hunting after Volnak. And they did a lot of thinking from the commentary about the cloaking device. Why he the thinking is that, like, if people died with their cloaking devices still on, you wouldn't be able to see them. And so I think in one of the drafts, like, Teal'c stumbles over a cloaked dead Sodan warrior and gets the cloaking device from that. But they put a lot of effort into, whose POV are we looking through? Are we and the filter is kind of purple, when they're in cloak vision and stuff. So it's easy to follow, like, when Teal'c is cloaked and when he isn't cloaked, and who can see him and who can't see him.
Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. Calling back to evolution, part 1 and 2, the whole, we'll call them zombies just for fun.
Yeah.
So the prior turned Volnek into the zombie warrior. I didn't really mind it, though I was a little, I guess I wasn't paying attention to how they explain that away. That the Ori just happened to use the same technology that I think it was Anubis had left on Earth and then created his warriors from. And
I think it was an ancient device that they found in the Mayan temple, Dr. Lee's first episode, I think, or one of them. And so basically the Ori know most ancient technology, and so they were able to know about that and create zombies, but only when I think they really hate the people they want to wipe out, because it seems like a pretty grim way to go.
I will say Stargate is definitely taken, we've talked about this, but like a much like darker kind of twist, because in the Ori have started with, there's a plague, you realize we don't, and they burn people alive, and then you don't really even see the prior like begging, or there's no like, you will hallow the Ori, you need to believe in us. It's just like, meh, y'all screwed up. Now you're a zombie and you're gonna go kill everybody.
Yeah, and there's a reference to the Day of Reckoning, like the prior told him that a Day of Reckoning was coming. So it's good that Volnak told everybody that before he turned into a zombie. But we get a really good kind of voiceover by Tony Todd, rest in peace, as Haecker, as he explains what's going on. And it kind of culminates with the scene of Volnak, frothing at the mouth as he's trying to like break his bonds. And I guess that scene ran on for longer. I don't know if Peter, the whole foaming was like Peter DeLuise, who directed this. I think he's been banned from doing commentaries, him and Gary Jones, because his commentaries were just they were just the two of them like goofing up and making like 12-year-old boy jokes throughout the entire episode. So I think they might have asked him not to do anymore, but so we don't get the Peter DeLuise commentary on this, but the writer and Jim Menard, the cinematographer, were like saying, yeah, we tried to cut away from that as quickly as we could because it went on really long. And so they, the whole foaming at the mouth thing, I think they cut away from that pretty quick.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty effective though, because this is a character we got to know pretty well in that first episode with the Sodan. So yeah, it's like I said, it's unfortunate that we didn't get that, a season or two ago of the Sodan kind of being involved, and we're having them more involved in these episodes just because they were a really interesting concept. And I don't know if I saw some speculation online that people thought that Haecker would then go off to join the Free Jaffa and in the fight against the Ori and stuff, but on screen, because they basically say, we're going to give him Trutonin because his symbiote's dead, but he's pretty injured, and even with the Trutonin, we don't know if he'll survive. So,
yeah, we didn't see him die.
Mm-mm. But he also didn't have much love for the Free Jaffa. So.
No,
right? Yeah, and so that's why, it was just a speculation of that, or like, because either that or what does he do? If he lives, what does he do? Just because he doesn't have his people anymore. Interesting idea could have been like bringing the Free Jaffa to live on this planet and like kind of be a new, Sodan people. But yeah, I don't think he's even referenced in anything beyond this. I could be wrong though, but there might be books and stuff, but I haven't read them.
And originally it wasn't going to be Volnak. It was going to be Jolan. But that actor wasn't available, so they had to make it Volnak, which would have been more resonating for Mitchell because he had the more of the friendship with Jolan, but they didn't. They couldn't get that actor.
Yeah, but they have to go on a Volnak hunt. To try to find him because he took the control crystal from the obelisk, so they can't train. I can't remember how far in the last episode they said the village was from the gate, but like far enough you couldn't get there anytime soon.
It was many months on foot.
Yeah.
Did you not love? So Mitchell comes through the gate and surprises them, and Teal'c has like just complete deadpan when he turns on the cloak or whatever Sodan thing, and Mitchell's talking like he always just talks, and then Teal'c just responds to him, and then Mitchell does this whole like, I can't believe you could see me, and I love that. And I did see some people online arguing about like they didn't like that Teal'c should have said something, they could have had this whole, and I'm like, or Teal'c should have been like, oh my gosh, you're here, and I'm like, that's not Teal'c.
Teal'c takes everything in stride, right?
React to it and just show no reaction.
Perfect Teal'c response, right?
And then try and swat him with a P90, which was funny too.
That was awesome. So what's your count? Isn't it, Victor? You've been keeping it like there's a count as to how many times Teal'c hits Cameron Mitchell?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if this one counts because he didn't actually connect, but I did like, Mitchell says like, how did you know that would go through me? And Teal'c says like, I did not, as he walks off.
That was awesome. I love it.
And I also like to think that Teal'c would have like done his thing where he can kind of has that sixth sense about things, and because like when they saw the Sodan the first time, he could kind of sense they were there. So I kind of think Teal'c may have been able to sense like something was amiss just because he's Teal'c, but maybe not. But yeah, so him and or Teal'c and Mitchell go and try to lure Volnek into an ambush because shooting him just like I had forgotten this was kind of linked to that device back in the Mayan temple. So yeah, you
have to blow him up.
They have to lure him in, right? Because they can shoot him as many times and it won't.
And I do like that it was the Major and then Colonel Reynolds who came up with the idea. We'll use claymores, which is also a nice callback because we used claymores like all the time in seasons 1, 2, and 3. They were just setting up those little anti-personnel mines everywhere and trying to lure Apophis into them and everything. So the Claymores were a really nice callback, and that was, I think, obviously Peter DeLuise
likes to
doing
blow
that.
stuff up.
Yes, he does. And he likes to shoot trees, and there's a lot of trees that get shot in this one too.
I'd forgotten about that. They were always setting up a perimeter with claymores in the first couple of seasons, weren't they?
And they did recently too with the bugs. I think the last SG-1 they had when they were setting up the final perimeter, or was it C4? Okay.
Yeah, they buried C4 with motion sensors, but I like claymores and a tripwire a lot better, personally. Yeah, and so Reynolds is skeptical of the plan, but they go ahead with it. Anyways, I did like it. That it was the Marines who came up with the idea,
and you knew exactly what was going to happen in that. Mitchell's like, use me as bait. He can't hit me. It's all good. And, I mean, you knew he was suddenly going to come back in a dimension or whatever and, be able to be hit. But I don't care. I liked it.
Yeah.
It works. When you do a trope well, it works. And to me, this one worked.
Yeah. So Teal'c has his 2 P90s, which he unloads. I think there's 50 rounds in a P90 magazine. So he's already shot Volnak like 100 times, and I think he shoots him another 100 times. And they were joking on the commentary that he needs to come out and have like 3 or 4 P90s, instead of just 2, just pockets stuffed full of P90s to show that it's escalating. But yeah, and back on Earth, of course, Dr. Lee messes up again, which, okay. And he's draining the power from the device, and it's going to basically, trap everybody in the parallel dimension, unless Daniel can find a way to turn it off, which he does, at the opportune time on Earth, but not the opportune time for Mitchell.
Yeah, and when Daniel gets stuck over there with them, I love it that he's like, "Where's Mitchell?" And oh, he left. It's fine. What happens when we turn it off? We'll find
probably
out.
A subspace link. Most ancient technology works over great distances, so their communication stone too. Why not?
It's like, it works in the plot. Just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she says, of course, now the translation will go much faster now that you're here. And they, that is one moment I remember that kind of, they're both like smiling at each other, like sarcastically.
Yeah,
like,
they did.
So,
yeah, and I like the business they do when they're trying to realize if they can touch each other. First, it's Mitchell and Sam, and they're like just kind of poking each other. He pokes Sam pokes him back harder, and then she does the same with Daniel when they finally come back into phase with our universe, or dimension, I should say. Yeah,
and I liked Landry getting mad at Dr. Lee. Hate to say that, but that was
he does that a lot.
Yeah, it was a pretty good scene. Poor Dr. Lee. I'm with you. Dr. Lee used to be much smarter, more effective, I guess is the way we say it. And that now he's kind of the, the
comic
punching
relief
bag for the show. Yeah. Which is fine. It works.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say I like in the fight scene with Teal'c and Volnek where he's using the P90s as like melee weapons, like because Volnek at that point is like hitting him with their staff, and he's like Teal'c's just swinging the P90s around and using them like to block the weapon, and because I mean it was just a funny scene because Teal'c doesn't have a staff weapon, which would have been the ideal thing to fight with, but.
Yeah, and I like the way Mitchell realizes he's come back into phase. He falls backwards against a tree, and part of the tree, the running tree stump is in his hand, and he's like, "Uh-oh." And then we get a fight scene where Ben Browder fights the invisible, from our perspective, Volnak. And so, that's Ben Browder, like, basically fighting himself and throwing himself down on the ground and backwards and stuff and, choking himself and stuff. And that was all Ben Browder doing his own fight stunts there.
Which he did better against Invisible Volnek than he did in the episode where the Ancients trying to ascend, remember? And they had the fear monster.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was.
That was Atlantis. Never mind.
Yeah.
He did better than Colonel Shepard did.
Yes, he did.
Sorry, wrong show.
And he manages to grab that crystal, which is good because they had done that, they would have had to send the Odyssey or something after to find them. So,
well, or dig through the Volnek bits to find it.
I will say, do you notice that they didn't acknowledge that? It was like,
Yeah,
he's gone.
Well, at the end, they turn around and walk back, and they fade out just as they were like basically walking through the bits. But yeah, and so there was a lot of, Peter DeLuise directed it, and then when they got into the editing room, they're like, "Wait, how did Mitchell get the crystal off Volnek? Because you can't see it." And then, but apparently Peter DeLuise maintained that there was one punch in the fight sequence that Mitchell threw where he could have grabbed the crystal or something. So that was his out. There.
It was fine. We didn't care.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah. Anytime two characters are close to each other, they can always grab anything off the other person's person. That's just how it works.
Yeah, exactly. It could have fallen out of his pocket when they're rolling around. Yeah.
Good thing Teal'c didn't shoot it.
Yeah, and as we kind of talked about, they learn about Sam and Jackson learn about the weapon, and then they see that there's coordinates, and then they're brought back into phase. So kind of sets us up for what's next, like I said. So,
and how many the code that Daniel had to enter to get them out, to turn it off or to get them out of the dimension? I mean, it was a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
like typing in that little keyboard.
A lot of sequences. It was actually just kind of funny because Dr. Lee's over there like, oh no, it's about to, and Daniel's like, wait, I got 25 more buttons to push. Just give me a minute.
Before we get to the alternate titles, is there anything else y'all wanted to call out on this episode?
I like it. There's a lot of ad libs and, like I said, funny, physical comedy bits in it that weren't in the script and were added on set by the actors, and stuff. So a bunch of Ben Browder's dialogue was ad libbed. And one thing I like about reading or listening to the commentary is that they tell you like which writers like put in which funny lines and stuff into it too. So you get the sense that it really is a collaborative writing environment. Yeah.
I just want to say that my young adult daughters were watching this with me, and they both really liked the fact that Teal'c had both the P90s. They thought that was very attractive. They were like, wow, when that scene where he comes up and he's got both of them, and they were just like, nicely done. I was like,
yeah.
Yeah, and one other funny line that I thought was funny was when they're trying to identify what's happening with the gate. Sam, when she's out of phase, is listening to Walter talk, and she's like, she's saying the answer, and Walter's like saying, I can't figure it out. I'll have to get back to you. And she's like, she knows the answer and she can't say it. So
that was awesome.
Funny.
I like the other technician too, and kudos to that actor for keeping his focus on the while Sam's just like yelling in his ear, right? And she's like, yeah. See, he's like, no, it's nothing,
Yeah. She's like, you need to hear me.
Yeah. Eventually, though, Walter figures it out.
He does. That, you're right. That was a really great scene. I'd forgotten about that.
Awesome. Did we have any good alternate titles for this one, Victor?
Yeah, most were Arthur's Mantle, but in Italian we get Il Segreto di Merlino, which is Merlin's secret. In German we got Neue Dimensionen, which is New Dimensions. Sorry if I butchered that. And then in Japanese we got Asao no Mantle, which is King Arthur's Mantle. Good.
Very nice. Yeah, I like that we kind of got back to the Arthur mythology because it's been a little bit since we have, so that we're tying that back in. So, all right. Well, we'd like to take a moment to thank all of our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Stargate, including Jude H., Brandon H., Ernie M., Seth N., and Clint V. Their generous donations make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Stargate and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And be sure to follow the show on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or find our video versions at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. To find previous episodes of Secrets of Stargate and to send feedback, please visit sqpn.com/Stargate. And you can email us at stargate@sqpn.com or follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or on X at SQPN. And we'll be back next time with this next episode of Stargate Atlantis, Michael. So until then, Lisa Jones, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Stargate.
Thanks, Jeff.
And Victor Lambs, thank you as well.
Thanks, Jeff. And piece of cake. While we're at it, maybe we can teach him how to speak Japanese.
That's what we have you here for, Victor.
Yeah. Oh, no.
And once again, I'm Jeff Haecker. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Stargate on StarQuest.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?